Evening, everyone. So, welcome to another episode in the Placebo Effect series and entering the parasympathetic, calming our nervous system so as to allow opening of our tissues and organs for accelerated detoxification and raising of our pH, which result in a speed healing of any chronic illness and even cancer. And it's essential that you relieve the tension in your body if you want to overcome a chronic illness, because your life was already extremely exhausting and your system was already depleted and running unsustainably, and now there's an enormous a larger than most people have other task to be dealt with, a cleansing and repair job that the body is going to need you to free up energy expenditure and redirect it inwards. Now, the sympathetic survival state is obviously blood to the limbs and to the base of the brain, to the brainstem, and the mammal and reptilian brains, and it's just survival. And this, in the long term, if you're spending many hours a day like this most days of the year, you are depriving your organ systems and your higher brain from its oxygen, water and glucose. Besides the fact that in the tension and blindness of the rush that is being very occupied and subject to high demands, there's no time or space to even deal with your own needs and process and sense and feel and understand and accept and heal any past baggage or limiting beliefs you might have, and difficulties and struggles. You are not focused on yourself, you're focused just on dealing with immediate challenges and threats. And the opposite of this is obviously the well-irrigated, cleansing, detoxing, resting, regenerating, repairing, digesting, recovery mode that also allows for higher consciousness, which is exploring the vibrational scale of consciousness or emotion by David Hawkins, the top half, which after the lower half of shame, guilt, apathy, fear, anger, pride and courage, and then you rise into the top half of neutrality, willingness, acceptance, peace, love, joy, enlightenment, and so on, reasoning. And this is only possible when you're in a calm state. And this would indicate that all through our history we have 3/4 of our time or more been in this mode of evolving our consciousness and expanding, as opposed to a small part of the time, maybe for men it was a fifth or a quarter of their time, when it was performance time, chasing, hunting, surviving, fighting, protection, the continuity issues, basically, self-preservation, and yes, battling with nature or thriving within nature. So it's fundamental to your well-being to redefine yourself and your worldview as knowing what you want and what you don't want. If you have not consciously made the decision to not entertain these lower emotions, and you're spending time in the survival state unconsciously, you should always be aware of it. You should always be conscious and noticing yourself and self-observing and a step behind yourself, or work on developing that distance to realize, oh, I'm fighting something right now, or I'm threatened, or I'm in a state of urgency, or there's shame, or there's guilt, or there's I'm practicing blame. Basically, all of these emotions, you can be the giver or the receiver, and that's the full vibration. It's almost impossible to be doing only one of the two. You're always both a victim and an abuser, so to speak. The vibration, that frequency, is a stick with two ends, the giver and the receiver, and you cannot hold the stick at one end without being a full holder of that stick. We give what we get, and we do what's done to us, and it's a matter of time Obviously, something is done to you, you're much more likely to go and do it to someone in the future. But if you find yourself doing something to someone, expect also a bigger fish. You understand? The vibration completes itself, loops close, and you get a full cycle, a full wheel, and then you've got a vicious cycle or a virtuous cycle running in perpetuity. So we've got to be very careful of the things we start, and corrupting choices, self-betrayal, contradictions, hypocrisies, and trying to get a quick reward, everything that feels like cheating or stepping out of the basic laws and divine justice, natural law, is basically asking for even more stress and tension and affliction in your future. So, as for fear and abuse, we need to understand that they're extremely weakening, they're exhausting, and they're depleting to us. They then require a lot of self-soothing gratification and relief, and people stimulate in any way they can to avoid these internal emotional states, to keep them painted over. We keep painting the rust over instead of changing the part. We need to constantly replace and regenerate ourselves, and there are wounded past components in our makeup that we are running away from with all the distraction and excitation and relaxation and pleasure and relief and escape and endless distractions in the modern age. And I'm not just talking about screens. Entertainment is more stimulating than it's ever been in history, and sex is everywhere. It's been normalized. People have almost forgotten about love, and that sex is actually the culmination of a connection between two people, instead of the way most people are treating it nowadays. Oh no, that's the first thing. You've got to find out if there's good chemistry. You've got to know what it'll be like. Yeah, get right down to the business first of all. That's tragic misconception. Everything else is more important than that. Like the most basic and primal behavior of reproduction is definitely going to happen if it's meant to be between two people. You don't worry about that, and it'll be really good. It'll be amazing automatically. But yeah, so when you start recognizing abuse and mistreatment as fallacy and unsustainable and exhausting and depleting to you, and you consciously become automatically immune, and these temptations or traps or pitfalls or opportunities to engage with something unfruitful or not fruitful enough for your standards of self-care, and something's basically not worth it, and you might say a temptation. You can call it the devil. It's not sustainable. It'll weaken you. It'll exhaust you, and you have enough of whatever it is that thing might offer, or you don't desire or value the benefit enough for the cost. And basically, we're talking about short and cheap pleasure and rewards in life, or slower, longer curve, truly rewarding and living in the kingdom. So the true kingdom is within you, and it's called neuro-endocrine plenitude, inner gold cultivation. And that means becoming sensitive again to our neurotransmitters and our hormones by secreting a lot less of them, and regaining low tolerance so that a drop goes a long way, the way an addict would need a bucket of. And yes, this is mainly, we're talking about identity shifting out of abuse, fear, pain, distrust, mistreatment, and it's very difficult to do, because if you have been trauma bonded in your life early, you are compatible with, and it's familiar to you, endless other forms of trauma bonding. You might even become early in life the abuser instead of the victim, but it's unconscious, and it's often, people call it twin flame or karmic bond, where two people are extremely challenging and exhausting to each other, and it's a lower conscious, not higher conscious interaction that causes both people to deeply reevaluate their former life path and their direction and their patterns and their habits and their lifestyle. So this is a bit of an abstract video. It's a bit formless. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what the practice is, but if you can, it's maturity, it's understanding. Self-care is largely about saying no, letting go, passing, no thank you, enough of that, been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. So I wanted to keep this video short. Disidentifying, disengaging from abuse and mistreatment as they create addiction. They make you addicted to the intensity. The cortisol and the adrenaline are like heroin, harder even to give up. Takes many, many years to change the character and personality of somebody who's addicted to strife, struggle, helplessness, frustration. Yes, these emotions are highly addictive, and they are the product of interacting with abuse. If you entertain division, separation, superiority, inferiority, domination, and the absence of equality, if you entertain that, especially as a man, because all of history, man has naturally felt leadership and in charge and responsibility, whereas woman has felt more gratitude and been on the receiving end and acquiescing or adapting gratefully. So, especially for a man, if you entertain subjection and affliction, submission, injustice and abuse, like for example your boss driving a car 5 times the value of your car, that is a strong factor in depressing you. It's much more advisable to you, and you'll be a lot better off if you become self-employed in that job you're doing, if it's really the job that you most want to do, or that you've committed to, or you've chosen, and you're good at, and you feel is what's meant for you. But obviously in friendships and family relationships, especially in family relationships, it's a big issue, and in a romantic relationship it can be hell. And children's lives are the product of this, and their personalities and their trust issues and their concept of love as betrayal. And I should mention in this video, the word love is our comprehensive hypernym, so a list of synonyms, large group of synonyms that includes all the meanings of authority, power, privilege, benefits, advantage, safety, protection, security. Everything you associate as an infant with your parents is basically God. So your vision of life and of God and power itself is synonymous with your concept of love, your understanding of what love is. So if you've seen loved ones be very cruel and insensitive, even ruthless with each other, you have to be aware of the fact that you're extremely prone to finding something familiar that will fulfill those neurological patterns and hormonal cocktails that shaped you. We all have a unique individual combination of biochemical makeup from our first life chapter, first 10, 15 years, then the following 10 years. And it's only when you're 25 or 30 that you become really conscious and aware and self-observing and able to contrast and compare what the difference between what you would like life to be and what it is, and actually becoming actively coherent, congruent, consistent, and in integrity towards making that a reality. So this is the more vague and abstract, but it's also the foundation. Becoming immune to mistreatment and manipulation especially, the influence by others, and exploitation and abuse. And again, as I always say, if you're being abusive and incoherent with yourself in your own structure and discipline and integrity, you are highly compatible with betrayal, disappointment, helplessness, and injustice, because you have practiced those feelings so much that whether it's inside you or outside you, the vibration is going to be completed. And I always say smokers have a direct elevator lift that non-smokers don't have, in that they can skip the next cigarette and the one after that will be way, way better, maybe the best of the day, probably the best of the day. And this wakes them up to, I can use every single cigarette as a tool for growth, positivity, pride, self-respect, reward, instead of necessity and urgency and dependency and addiction and helplessness and self-harm and betrayal. Oh, I'm going to die young. God damn it, I deserve it. Look what I'm doing to myself. 20 a day. I'm an idiot. All this stuff with every cigarette. Extreme cognitive dissonance and self-harm and self-betrayal. You can flip that around by reducing down to 5 or 6 a day. It'll take you a few weeks, but just removing 1 or 2 cigarettes every week from your day, you get down from 15 or 20 a day to 5 or 6. And then suddenly, and during that whole journey, you're rewiring how your nerve patterns fire in relation to cigarettes. And that dopamine reward, that pleasure reward of the cigarette will go to fueling a new identity. Your identity shifting into, I'm in control. I do things because I want to, when I want to, because I deserve it, and I'm proud of myself. And there's restraint, and there's timing, there's quality, not quantity. All of this, thanks to believing in better. This is the fundamental. Choosing love and higher consciousness and power and freedom is essentially begins with fantasy, idealism, and wonder, the faculty of wonder. So we're all philosophers, and we all like to see the bad guy in a film stroking a kitten, or even cruel people like a happy ending to a story. We all have in common that we were designed with divine potential. Higher consciousness is what we gravitate towards. It's what we grow, like plants grow upwards towards sunlight. Our destiny is to elevate consciousness and evolve. Maturity is not a good word for describing the beauty that is expansion, evolution, growth, learning. As in, every unit of time that goes by is empowerment. It's power. It's the supreme power, which is truth, love, God. It's all inevitable. It's inevitable. It's our very nature. It's our destiny. So these basics I've explained in this video should be very reassuring and give you peace of mind, knowing it's not just going to be fine. I can make it be fine way sooner than it would be, and I can commit and make choices, self-care choices, just the way a victim separates themselves from an abuser. When we're talking about individual human beings, you can do this on an abstract plane, on an abstract level. And come. On the most abstract level possible, you can choose to disengage even from buying a product or a service that you don't approve of, or that disappoints you, or that is offensive to you. These kinds of decisions, making moral choices and standing by them, marrying your choices and actions and decisions coherently instead of hypocritically with your values and beliefs, and harmonizing with what you consider to be good and value and agree with from your environment or your community or your social movement priorities. Finding congruence and self-fidelity. Self-fidelity is the key word in this video. Loyalty to your very core, your nature, your higher self, your potential, your well-being, your stability. Because in the end of the day, when you're rescuing yourself from exhaustion, depletion, suffering, instability, volatility, the goal and the holy grail is stability, calm, serenity, groundedness, immovable, unshakable, safety, faith, security, a good kind of gravity, and rootedness, like a healthy, strong tree. This is growth. I mean, it just takes time. but your time can be more consciously directed or less consciously directed. So yeah, there's a video on self-fidelity and conscious choice of our direction in which we're evolving. And yeah, identity shifting away from abuse, mistreatment, and unsustainability. Thanks for your time. Take care.